Hello, everybody. This is Global Warming Skeptic here, and this is another episode of TYT Exposed. Um, Cenk Uygur has had a lot to say about the Libya situation and about war in general over the past few months. In particular, his criticism of Donald Trump. Now, let me just begin this by saying I'm not going to defend Trump on the Libya situation. He has completely fumbled on this point. He has completely fumbled with his original position. I don't know if he forgets or he's just flat lying and trying to keep a consistent message. But the reality is that when Donald Trump said that he said nothing about the Libya situation to Ted Cruz, he was very likely lying. I believe that he was lying. I believe he was doing it to keep a consistent message, but it's wrong nonetheless. It's wrong to lie, and this is coming from a Trump supporter. Now, saying that, there is one thing, and it's the important thing to defend Trump regarding this situation, is that while Trump was initially for getting rid of Gaddafi, he never agreed with how it was handled. And you could listen to his personal blog immediately after that fact. Donald Trump never agreed with how Libya was handled. So, and then if you listen to old videos of Cenk Uygur, which, by the way, he finally admits in this video that he was in support of ousting Gaddafi. If you listen to his support, it was celebratory. He was celebrating the outing of Gaddafi, the takeover of Tripoli by the rebels, and he did one of those things like, we got him, the thing that he does. He was in favor of that, as he admits in this video. So Trump has been a lot more consistent than Cenk Uygur has, and all of this is just almost meaningless now, because if you listen to this video, this final judgment, why Rand Paul's Muhammad Ali Act is a bad idea, you will see that everything that Cenk Uygur has fought for on the Young Turks falls apart. Take this video in context with everything that he has said before for years about nation building. George W. Bush's nation building in the Middle East, trying to nation build Iraq, trying to start fights with people, which Obama has done a lot worse with, because now we're trying to nation build in Libya, Syria, and to some extent we tried it with Egypt before the Muslim Brotherhood was overthrown. But that's aside from the point. Here's the point I'm making. This video was a response to two things by Rand Paul. The first proposal by Rand Paul in light of Muhammad Ali's death. As you all know, Muhammad Ali refused to go to war in Vietnam despite being drafted and got punished for it. And Rand Paul wants to get rid of the terrorist authorization of force, where we could just go into any country and bomb the hell out of them just because terrorism. And second, Rand Paul wants to get rid of the selective service so that we can have a 100% volunteer army. And would you believe it if I said that Cenk Uygur, Mr. Anti-War, Mr. don't want to send sons into fruitless wars, agrees with the draft? Now, in this video, he attempts to justify it by saying a draft would decrease the likelihood of us sending our children to war. On what basis, Cenk? Because, as you admit in this video, who's going to war? Is it the rich kids? No. The rich kids aren't going to war. They're going to get out of it. They're going to cite religious reasons. They're going to lawyer up. They're going to find ways out of it that poor people cannot find out of it. They're going to get deferments, etc. And so it's going to leave us in the exact same situation that we're in right now. The exact same situation. Except for you want to force people into the military. See, this is how a socialist authoritarian nation is born. It's born on conscription, it's born on the use of force to control behavior. And if you start forcing, as Bernie Sanders would have us do, forcing people to go to school for 16 years instead of 12, and now on top of that, you have 4 years or whatever of required military service, that is 25 years out of somebody's life dedicated to the state. Flat dedicated to the state. To me, 12 years is even too long. 12, well, 13, including kindergarten, but that is insane. That is more than enough time for the state to brainwash an individual to thinking that the state's standards are universal, are objective standards of humanity. This is how people should live. And Cenk Uygur is for this. It's unbelievable. And if you listen to his reasoning, and it's like I said, I'm not going to play the full video because, as much as I'd like to have this in context, the reality is I'd have to play the full video, and considering the Mashable versus Louder with Crowder incident, I don't want to have copyright strikes against me, and I know the Young Turks would do that. They would not be beyond throwing copyright strikes at people. But the fact is this: everything that the Young Turks stood for that was good, the anti-war, the let's stop sending our children into fruitless wars, let's let the Middle East kill each other for all we care, this whole let's not let's get rid of the petrodollar, let's stop tying everything of our interests to oil, foreign oil, it's all gone. The one good thing they stood for is done. And now that Hillary Clinton has secured the nomination, even the one thing that the Democratic Party stood for that was good is gone. It's done. So what you're going to see is the Democrats are very likely, and if you listen to Hillary Clinton's rhetoric and the rhetoric of her campaign, you're seeing that they are going, and I couldn't even believe this when I heard it too, because if you look at Hillary Clinton's voting record in Congress, it's actually pretty liberal. She's not a center-right, as people say, but now, as much as I hate to admit it, I have to say that the Bernie people were right about one thing. She's moving right, but it's looking more and more like this country is no longer going to be about left versus right politics. It's going to be about authoritarian versus libertarian values. And if Hillary Clinton gets elected, we're going to be fighting for our lives for not just a left versus right discussion, but for freedom versus discipline, oppression, control. We're going to have to start giving up our individual rights for the rights of the state. And for those of you, as a final point, who think that Donald Trump is authoritarian, I think I need to remind people that being loud does not mean being extreme. Donald Trump is a very loud moderate. He's for some security in areas, but if you listen to his proposals, if you read his website, you will see that Trump is for localizing control of a lot of things, getting costs down, cutting fat out of things, getting rid of bureaucratic corruption, and putting Americans first, having a non interventionist, protectionist policy where we start protecting our own workers again, where the government needs to be imposing, it is the local communities, and we start valuing our local officials. And the reason we know Trump is going to do this is because, look where Trump comes from. And look at Trump's defining moment standing outside, interviewed just outside of the World Trade Center as it got busted up by an aircraft. To me, that's the picture of Donald Trump. And he was a personal witness to the local firefighters and medical services, the boots on the ground that went into those towers and helped those people. And I think that Trump has an affinity for them, and that is who he would want to entrust with this nation's security, rather than a bunch of inept, lobbyist controlled federal bureaucrats who have no clue. Anyhow, I've gone on a little bit too long. Bit of a rant, but the main point I'm making here, and don't lose sight of it, Cenk Uygur, his whole shtick about being anti-war has been torn to shreds. Thanks for listening. God bless.